Today we're going to be looking at making a generic waypoint system that can be used for a multitude of different things. This could be elevators, moving platforms, moving hazards, enemies, or off-screen spawners. So let's take a quick look at the scene that I've got set up. I've got an empty game object that's got my simple platform controller script from the GameObjects, a rigid body and a box collider. And in the level we've got a tile map that's got a background and some platforms. We've got a little moving saw, and then we've got a couple of moving platforms that we'll get to in a second. So let's click play. And as you can see, the saw's quite happily moving along the bottom of the screen. If I now enable this first platform, as you can see now we've got a platform that goes from A to B and back again. And finally we'll enable this last platform. As you can see, it's following a set of waypoints up and down. It'll get to the end and it'll shoot back. Now we've also got an option to reverse the motion. So instead of it going straight back in a straight line as you just saw, when it gets to the end now it should flip direction and go back. So this is what we're going to look at making. So if we stop this, let me remove these scripts, and we'll get stuck into Visual Studio. So the first thing we want to do is jump into the scripts folder and create a new C# script. We'll call this move game object. We'll let that compile and then we'll open that up in Visual Studio. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is declare our initial variables. So the first couple of variables we want to put in here is the game object that we want to move and the speed we would like to move it at. So we've got our header, the object to move, and movement speed. The next set of variables we're going to add will be an array of transforms for our waypoints and our first waypoint. Okay. The next set of variables will be our movement options. So we've got a ball for reverse, flip, facing right. We've got a sprite renderer and an animator. These will be used for something like the saw. And finally we want two more variables. This will just be the next waypoint and a private ball to let us know whether we're in reverse mode or not. Okay, if you'd like to take 2 seconds, pause the video and copy that information down. We'll look at the Unity based methods next. Okay, so if we jump into the start method, and if we paste this in, next waypoint equals waypoints, then we want our little brackets for an array and the first waypoint. This will be the first waypoint that our platform, spawner, whatever will travel to. And then in the update method, we need to put this in. Okay, so we've got a reference to our game object, which is the one we've got up here. Because we're moving it by its transform, we can move it in update, that's not a problem. And what we're going to do is we're going to use vector3 move towards. We're going to take our original position, our next waypoint position, and then we're going to move it by our move speed by time delta time. And then we've got a if-else-if statement to check whether or not we're going to use reverse mode. If we're in reverse, we call the reverse function, and if we're not, we call the forward function. So let's start creating these methods. Okay, so the first function we're going to implement is the forward function. This is the forward function, so let's take a quick look at what's going on in it. In this first if statement, we're simply checking if the current GameObject transform is equal to the waypoint that we want to reach. If so, we're going to increment the waypoint by 1. This if use flip statement would be used if you're using saws, enemies or anything like that. We'll now check if the first waypoint is equal to the last waypoint in the array length. If we're using reverse, what we'll do is we set reverse to true. We make our first waypoint the final waypoint length -1. So if we have 5 waypoints, the next waypoint would be waypoint 4. If we're not using reverse, we just simply jump back to waypoint 1, and then we just set the next waypoint. So that's pretty much all we need to do for the forward function. So let's get on with the reverse function. Okay, here's the reverse function. It's very similar to the forward function. Again, what we're doing is we're checking if we've reached the next waypoint. But this time we're going to de-increment as we're going backwards. And once we reach the last waypoint in the array, which is the first waypoint in the array, if you get what I mean, we're going to set reverse to false, set the first waypoint back to 0, and then set the next waypoint equal to the first waypoint, if that makes sense. Okay, and then the final method we need to implement is the flip method, so let's implement that. Okay, here's the flip function. It's pretty much a standard flip function. We check if we're facing right, and if we are, we simply face left. If not, if we're facing left, we swap it over to face right. And then if we're facing right, we flip the sprite render on the X direction. Now I've got animator set ball facing right true. This is to swap the rotation on the saw. And if we're not facing right, we set flip X to false, and we simply set our facing right to false. This should be all the code that we need in the main script. So let's just jump back up again and start from the top. So in our variables, we've got the game object that we want to move. We've got our movement speed. We've got our array of waypoints and our first waypoint we want to travel to. Then we've got our booleans for use reverse, use flip, facing right, and then some links to our sprite render and animator if we're using them. Okay, then in start method we're going to set the next waypoint equal to the first waypoint that we've chosen up here. And then in update, again we're going to move the game object towards the next waypoint over a set period of time, which is our movement speed. Then again we check if we're in reverse mode, we'll run the reverse method, which is this one. So again we check our waypoint position, de-increment it until we get back to 0, set reverse to false, set the the first waypoint to 0, and then again we set the next waypoint and we're away. So I think I've got everything covered in the actual main script. So we can save that. We can now start attaching this to some game objects and see what happens in Unity. Okay, so we jump back into Unity, and we'll start with the saw because this is probably the easiest. We'll jump into our scripts folder, we'll find our move game object, attach that to the empty prefab we got for the saw. Okay, we've got a game object that we want to move, so if we have a look in here, we want to move this circular saw, so we'll drag that into there. We'll set the move speed to say 3. These are our waypoints. As you can see, the array is empty at the moment, so for something simple like a circular saw, we only need 2 waypoints just to move to and fro. So we can type 2 into there, and I've already preset these waypoints. Let's make this a little bit bigger so we can zoom in. As you can see, I've got waypoint 1 and waypoint 2, so this is where the saw will travel to and fro between. Okay, so we've dropped those into our array. Waypoint 1, waypoint 2. We'll set the first waypoint to 1. Because we're using the saw, we need, and I've animated my saw, we're going to need to add the sprite renderer reference. So if we grab our circular saw and add that, that will pick the sprite up from the circular saw, and then finally we need to add an animator reference, which is a circular saw, and if we look on here, we've got our circular saw animator. I haven't put any box colliders, so this won't kill the player. This isn't my intention in this tutorial. All we're going to look at is simply moving the game objects. But here you'll put a box collider, set it as a trigger, and in the onTrigger enter function, this is where you'll deal damage to your player. So if we've done everything correctly, if we now hit play, as you can see, our saw is now moving up and down across the waypoints. Let's make this a little bit bigger. Okey-doke, so that's our saw working fine. So now let's take a look at how we can make a platform move. So let's stop that. We'll enable our first platform. Again, drag our script in. The game object that we want to use will be, mine's just called grass, it's just a standard platform. We've got a box collider, it's not set as a trigger or anything. So we need to drag that up into the game object that we want to move. Again, we'll choose a move speed. This one we'll set at 2. We've got 2 waypoints. As you can see, these are our waypoints. We want to go between these 2 bridges. So again, we need an array of 2. We'll put waypoint 1, which is actually waypoint 0. And then we'll put waypoint 2 into there. Again, we don't need to use reverse, flip, facing right, and we don't need to use a sprite renderer or the animator. All we're going to simply do is move this platform from left to right, right to left, etc. So if we press play now, if you notice my error, I've set the wrong waypoint, so let's stop that. I'll leave this in because we're all human and we love to make mistakes. And I could cut it out, but hell, let's leave it in. Let's try this again. That's better. We're now got our platform moving to and fro. So if we now make this a little bit bigger, we'll get our bunny up here ready to jump onto the platform. As the platform comes, we'll jump on, but you'll notice the platform moves and our bunny doesn't move with it. This is because we need to parent the bunny to the platform so it stays in position. So let me stop this. I've got a simple move platform trigger script, so we'll open that up so we can have a look at that. Okay, and what we're doing is we're checking on collision enter. We're looking for the player tag. Once we've identified that the player is the game object that's landed on the platform, we're going to set its parent to the transform, which is the current transform of the game object that we're on. And then simply, when we leave the platform, we're going to unparent it. So if you would like to sit down, pause the video, copy this method out, we'll then attach this to our platform in Unity and see what happens. Okay, let's jump back into Unity once again. This time we want to actually attach it to the platform that we want to be standing on this here. We don't want to attach it to the empty game object with these options. So if we jump down onto the grass, add this trigger. Now when we hit play, we should be able to jump up here with our little bunny character. Eventually wait for the platform to jump back. And then as it does, we can jump on it. And there you can see I can move on the platform. And I'm not stuck. Okay, we can mess about here, just jump around. If you want to know how to make the platforms, I can do a video on that. Should you wish, just put a comment in the description or the box below this video, and we'll look at possibly going through the tile map and how we can make these platforms. Okay, the final one would be the platform that moves all over the place. So let's enable that and take a quick look at what we've got going on here. As you can see, I've got 5 waypoints that go in a zigzag formation. If we open this up, we can see I've got some waypoints here. So waypoint 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. And then we've got our platform. So while we've got this open, again, we need to add the trigger script so the player gets its parenting done correctly. We can now add our moving game object. The game object again we want to follow will be this grass platform. We'll give it a move speed. Now our array wants to be 5 long. Oops, no, that wants to be position 1. Sorry, it's getting really late. I had to cut the video off. My wife came home and she started screaming like a banshee at the kids. So it's now 1 o'clock in the morning. And this is really the only time I get to create anything, because it's like a zoo in my house during the day. So now we can start adding the waypoints to the array. One, two, three. 4, 5. Okay, so now if we run this, as you see, our platform is now moving up and down between certain waypoints. As it hits the last waypoint, it will move back to waypoint 1. If we don't want this behaviour and we want it to return along the same path, we can click reverse. And as you can now see, it's going to and fro, as we would like. So you could do some quite complex patterns with this. And if we've done everything correctly, which we should have done, we've got our trigger script on the platform. Let me jump into the game scene. That's okay, the saw won't kill me. Now let's wait for the platform to come back. And here it comes, so we can jump on the platform, and again, because we parented it, we can walk about on it and we're perfectly fine. So this is basically how you can create yourself a generic waypoint system that can move a multitude of objects in various different ways. I generally use it for spawning objects outside the scene. In my Greedy Guts Gary game, I had it running along the top, spawning objects. I hope you found this tutorial useful. If we just want to take one final quick look at the code again, this is the platform trigger. Now, it's entirely up to you how you expand on this, whether or not you want to keep the platform stationary and trigger them once a player gets onto them. I'll leave that completely down to you. This is just an example of how we can move game objects. And this is again the movement script. So we've got our variables, the object, the move speed, the transform array, etc, etc, etc. I will gently scroll down. Okay, and that is all that's needed for a generic waypoint system. Hope you found this video useful. Please hit like and subscribe. It really helps. I will put a link to my Discord channel should you want to jump in and have a chat. I'm about most of the time. If I'm not, just ping me in the channel and I'll try and get back to you as soon as I possibly can. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you're all staying safe in this situation. And I will catch you in the next video. Thanks for watching and I'll see you soon.